I think one of the things that makes recovering from parental abuse specifically so difficult is that when you're younger, if your parents abuse you, oftentimes you end up in therapy. And abusive people are usually like narcissists and psychopaths. And the reason why narcissists and psychopaths usually don't change is because most of them never end up in therapy. They don't seek it out. It's a built-in feature of their disorder that they just can't conceptualize in any way that there might be something wrong with them. Any problems that they have, any reoccurring issues in their lives, they don't have accountability. So they never notice in the pattern that they're the constant. It's just always a different reason why it's this other person's fault. So most of them are undiagnosed. Even the doctor will tell you most psychopaths, most narcissists live their entire lives without a diagnosis. So your parents who are abusing you have something wrong with them. But it's a problem that will never be addressed, in all likelihood. In addition to that, therapy is a good thing. Now, what I'm about to say is very critical of how therapy works, and it's healthy to be critical of everything, but therapy is a good thing. I think everybody should be in therapy. That being said, modern therapy, especially the way it's used in the United States, is designed to reaffirm authority structures. So when somebody has a problem with the police or their parents, or the government, or their school, or their work, or just the way society is structured, which I think there's no disagreeing that the way society is structured in the United States goes against every moral statute held in every culture, including American culture. So if you don't like those things, it's immediately presumed that there's something wrong with you. So if you have an authority figure that's taking advantage of you or mistreating you or abusing you, including a parent, and you talk to a doctor about it, the doctor is immediately going to assume you have a problem with authority. Not authority is a problem. You have a problem with authority. And, okay, so we're going to take a little detour here. In psychology, they don't just talk about narcissism because it's bigger than that in the way that it affects everyone around the narcissist. They develop their own issues. They have to have names for those things. So in narcissistic family structures, it's not just a narcissistic family or a family with a narcissistic parent. They call it a narcissistic family structure because everyone's affected. In narcissistic family structures, there are several different roles that people fall into. And that's the thing about psychology that I think turns a lot of people off, is that we like to think that we're all beautiful, unique little snowflakes who are very individual and very, have our own will and our own minds, but we don't. You're one of X amount of types of people. You might have a unique combination of different character and personality traits, but there are millions of other people with that same combination of character and personality traits. So the way we react to abuse, there are different ways that everybody reacts to abuse, but they're all standard ways that people react to abuse. So no matter how you react, it's a textbook reaction. So my reaction was I became a truth teller. And, you have some people might just shut down. They might just not want to associate with people, not trust people, and kind of become very solitude and keep to themselves because they've seen the danger of insidious dishonesty, and they don't want to give anybody the power to be dishonest with them. Other people, like myself, learn the tells of a person with a personality disorder, which it really doesn't matter what they have. It doesn't matter if you're histrionic or if you're narcissistic or if you're a psychopath or whatever's wrong with you. It's a lot of the symptoms kind of are similar, and then there's this thing called comorbidity, where it's very common that somebody with one personality disorder also has another personality disorder. So it can be kind of, even when doctors are trying to diagnose exactly what's going on with somebody, it can be difficult because they often might have multiple things going on and symptoms are crossing over and blurring lines. In any case, when you're a truth teller, you begin to see the patterns of what abuse looks like and the patterns of what personality disorders look like. Now, in America, that's the same thing as what authority structures look like. So if you were to apply all of the traits of narcissism or even psychopathy and just remove the idea that it has to be a person and just place it on, well, this could be any entity. So a narcissism, psychopathy, those terms might not just apply to an individual, they could apply to a group. If you take all of the traits of what is a psychopath and apply it to the group that is the government, not even just our government, but most governments, that it fits the bill. So if you're a person who grew up in an abusive system, is taken advantage of by a psychopath, and you want to avoid being abused by psychopaths, you're probably not going to like the government too much. You're probably not going to like police too much. You're probably not going to trust either of those things too much. And you're like, even in school, when you have, like, I think we've all went to school. We've all inevitably in school been abused by a teacher with a personality disorder. It's just so many people with personality disorders are out there that it's inevitable. All of us have had a teacher with a personality disorder. And you're helping bosses too. It happens the rest of your life. I'm sure you've had a job where somebody who was in management was taking advantage of you and abusing their authority and treating you unfairly, and there's nothing you can do about it. If you talk to a doctor about that and you notice the pattern that just authority structures mirror personality disorders, and kind of just the idea of authority is what narcissism is, the idea that a person should be allowed to impose their beliefs and ideals on other people, especially if they're doing it with violence or the threat of violence, which is what the government is. If you don't do what I say, I'll kidnap you and throw you in a box where people are going to hurt you, or I'll just kill you myself. If a person was doing that, you would call them a psychopath or a narcissist. So if you are a person who has developed this trait to be a truth teller and call out personality disorders, you're probably not going to like any authority. You're probably just going to think, oh, if somebody's trying to tell me what to do, they're probably a bad person. Then that makes sense. But if you said that to a doctor, they'd say you had ODD. So you become the problem for being a victim of abuse and understanding what's going on. You're a victim, a helpless victim, if you're just some oblivious idiot who lets it happen, like, I didn't know what to do. Then we feel bad for you because you're very programmable. You're very indoctrinable. I could fuck with you and you won't do anything about it. But if you're a person who experiences that and goes, no, we're not doing this, that's bad for authority. Because authority's game is abuse. And these people have all gone through accredited universities and, like approved textbooks, approved curriculum. There's nobody out there who's going to expose them to this way of thinking about it. And people think of like doctors like, oh, they're pretty smart. No, they have a targeted education. Like there's no difference in intelligence level between a doctor who doesn't know how to fix a car and a mechanic who doesn't know how to doctor. They have different targeted educations. So like, it's not that being a doctor just makes you smart. These people just read a book and they know what the fucking book says. So they're just they're regurgitating information. That's what education is. It is regurgitating information. Being able to read something, remember it, and when it's important, be, oh, I know that. So when the information is controlled by people who are more tilted towards thinking that authority structures are good, people are not going to be trained to think about these disorders in that way. On the contrary, they're trained about something like called ODD, oppositional defiant disorder. Now, it's very, in essence, oppositional defiant disorder, which is just someone who doesn't want to be told what to do. And there's really nothing wrong. You shouldn't be telling people what to do. Like, nobody wants to be told what to do, but most people are just kind of passive, and they're like, oh, something bad will probably happen to me. But bad things happen when passive people take that stance in mass. Pretty much every atrocity in history is at least in some part attributable to people going, oh, what are you gonna do? They're killing people, I guess. We can't stop them. So it's not really morally good to be that sort of person. And it's not good for your health to be that sort of person. There's real cognitive dissonance in the way that we think about that. But if you were the child of an abusive parent, you became a truth teller, you probably spent your entire life with doctors telling you you're the problem. And then most people who experience abuse do eventually go out and become educated in psychology, whether it's through school or self-education. It's very common for victims of abuse to become interested in psychology. When you do, you start to uncover these patterns. You start to realize that the abuse was everywhere, and you don't even trust the doctors. So now what do? I can't talk to a therapist about this. They're the ones, they helped fuck me up. Who do I talk to? So I think it's just important that we need a restructuring of the mental health system and how we treat family abuse, how we treat personality disorders. What is a personality disorder? Because really, ODD, let's say if that diagnosis existed in the 1850s, any slave who revolted would have ODD because they weren't obeying their authority. They weren't doing what they were told. So that's just really an irresponsible diagnosis. The fact that it exists is irresponsible. That just assumes that authority is always right. And that's not the job of psychology. Psychology is supposed to be scientific. Authority is religious. The antithesis of science. Authority is dogmatic power. It has nothing to do with science. That's all.